was creating synergies. When you create the synergies, what are the synergistic relationships that need to occur that have lent themselves to this program working in Haiti? Can I have... Okay, so basically, they're really obvious, and a lot of what I'm going to say is going to be really obvious, but it was actually really learned as we went, and Dan's talk lends itself really well to this. It was the perfect segue into this conversation. You've got the village level, the local NGOs, you've got the local government, you've got the IEEE and CSI, and you've got funding organizations, and somehow something needs to be the relationship holder between all of those to make this work. Some entity, and in our case it's us in Haiti, had to understand what the villages need to communicate that to the IEEE, the trust and funding from the IEEE to deploy it with the permission of the local government, and then grow it with the funding organizations. Each one of these separate don't actually accomplish this model has just really worked well in our situation. Now, what I found really interesting when I wrote this was the realization that it hadn't ever occurred to me before that Sirona's obligation to each and every one of these is exactly the same. Our obligation to show up, and that means literally be present. Paul is on a call every Monday. We are with the IEEE every week. We're connected to our NGOs at all times, but you have to show up and keep showing up, and that's always true. With the government, funding organizations, everyone. Fighting history, NGOs don't have a great track record, and there's not a lot of confidence instilled in you because you are one, particularly at the village level, but that goes all the way up to the IEEE and the government as well, so you have to gain trust and not break promises. If you say you're going to do something, you need to be different and actually do it. Seeking a balance for maximum benefit. That really means showing all of these groups that this project benefits every single level and each player and how it does, so that everybody can see that they're getting a benefit out of it and promote it from each one of those angles. Finding a place at every table, at every level, and that means not only getting into the neighborhoods where our customers live and finding out about them, that's critical, and I'll talk about each one of these, but also figure out who the funding organizations are. Who does energy work, who is in Haiti, who is, what is actually happening, and who's just talking, and who's wasting money and you're never going to get any of it. Vetting all of that out. IEEE, being sure that you're at the table so that you understand what's going on, and local government, same thing. And you have to demonstrate accountability to each one of those groups at the same level. You cannot afford to not have one of these be a really strong relationship. We talked about this yesterday, that working from the village level up drives success. You understand what you're doing because it's going to work in the village level. So then you have something to bring to the funding organizations, to the IEEE, to the other levels. Showing up and returning is critical. You always under-promise and over-deliver. We showed up with 40 kits in the first 6 fundraisers just to make sure that that worked, and it turns out you can double it easily without affecting the performance of it. You set reasonable and achievable milestones, and you have to have milestones so that you can prove that you're getting somewhere to everybody involved. Because a lot of times, especially working in these types of countries, things run slowly, and you need to just show that you're accomplishing what you need to be accomplishing. The ownership, the local ownership component is really, really critical, that the bottom level feels an ownership of the program. That's the only way it's going to work. Otherwise, it will just, if they feel like I own it, it's something to be stolen. If it's something that they own, it's not. That's empowerment. Communication's essential. You have to always expect that you're going to fail. And I think Paul's going to laugh that I'm saying that finally. Paul's always expected to fail, and I've always been really shocked when we've had failure because I've always, it's just gone really well. I was actually surprised when we did our first evaluations 6 months later and found out that everything was operating at 100%. I was certain that something would have gone wrong, and nothing had at that point. later in the year. We had a couple of hiccups, but it really, we're collecting 9 operators now. I expect to fail, and we're actually selecting 15. I expect out of those 9, there's going to be somebody who didn't quite cut it, and we need a backup plan in the neighborhood of the customers that he's serving, so that, or she, and I'm desperate to get some women operators. But now I know I need to expect that somebody's not going to be able to do it, and what are we going to do for those people who they are paying and they have a service, and because he's not cutting it, we need to replace him in his neighborhood. And so we're backing ourselves up, which is really smart. And also, as we expand, we have a pre-vetted candidate, and we'll just find an additional one. So at the village level, the price point is really important, and you're only going to find that out at the village level. Nobody's going to be able to tell you from the top what people can pay. In fact, everybody at the top is going to tell you they can't pay anything. The market survey process was absolutely critical, and the way we did it was absolutely critical. There again, if I went into a village and asked how much they could pay, they would say they couldn't pay anything. So it needed to be done the way it was done, and it's a great model that we're going to take anywhere else. And it's information you can't afford to not have. And the consumer market research, as far as finding out why they love it, I mean, it seems obvious enough that just having light when you've been in the dark is a really positive thing. I know that they love the ability to turn on the light because it's so much faster with our lights than finding your kerosene and lighting it in the middle of the night if you need to get up. There are aspects of it. The fumes is another really big issue. The fact that their clothes aren't dirty from the kerosene lamps anymore. These things are the things that I understand about why they really like having light. When I come from a different world and it's such a part of my world, I wouldn't understand it if they didn't tell me. We're very excited about the fact that it has a Haitian name now. We're very excited that we, instead of calling it the home kit, which is an English word and it means nothing to them, to pick a word, tisole, and little sun, using their image of the sun from their culture. And the instructions on the back, while quite wordy, you know, it was pretty straightforward stuff. The only thing I neglected, and I need to add on to the next iteration of this, is that we had a great pictograph on the original label that showed how long it lasted with 1 light bulb, 2 light bulbs, you know, and I wish that I had remembered to include that information, but we have time. So, the relationship with the IEEE has been really, you know, a phenomenal thing in terms of just going from nothing into an idea into a pilot, and you know, it's been really, really great. But we also always knew it would end. It was not that this is an IEEE thing that is going to be, that they're not going to extend it. We knew that we were getting handed a ball that we needed to run with, and everything was set up with them in a way to make that happen, and the fact that they seed-funded the pilot equipment got us here, and now we're leapfrogging. I'll show you the progression as it's going. The expectation of the IEEE and our partnership has been very high of us, and as it should be. We're handling a lot of resources that would be squandered if we weren't doing a really good job. So we needed to be on our game. Accountability and transparency are really, really, really critical. I think that if there was something I wish I had more time to do, it would be write more reports back from Haiti. And I do try, we give a lot of oral feedback, but I hope that the IEEE has always felt like they had a really good sense of what was going on in Haiti. Even bad feedback, when you do have some bad news, it does improve the model and improves, that's how you learn. That's, you know, we changed some things, and it'll be really interesting when we start putting the agile plug on the equipment. I think that's going to be more feedback and kind of how do we manage that and help the operators learn how to manage it. Partner is always responsible for communicating to the IEEE about everything, really. Not only that, yeah, it's going okay, but you know, really we can show data sheets, we know exactly what's going on, and we can communicate that. And the long-term promise of technical support is really wonderful, because we know that this is not the end-all be-all. There's going to be something that we're going to want to change. There's going to be something we need to improve. People's power needs are going to go up. You know, as this develops, it's nice to know that we can always go back and talk to the IEEE about it. We might even have a failure mode that starts that the IEEE can help us solve. This is our history. I probably don't need to go through it again, but IEEE wanted to do something. We were doing something in the energy area, but just different. We combined and talked it out, came up with an idea, made it, launched it, and now Sirona Haiti is a real-life company and ready to scale up. Synergy with local government. The governments that we will be working with are going to be characterized by being unstable and underfunded. It's just that's the situation when you have that many poor people. Those go together. Recognizing that they are underfunded means that any project that comes in, they're going to be looking for what's their cut. What do we get out of this? You know, and also we can't afford it. We're not going to put anything into it. And what I've really been happy about is working with Haiti. There's a complete and comprehensive understanding that what we do stabilizes the government, because the government that brings light to the poor is a government that people like. So at least it's going to create a sense of stability. I'm not saying it can fix everything, but it doesn't hurt to be that president. They get stability out of it, and they get popularity. The individuals who are making the decision to move forward on this get the credit. So those are the types of things that they get out of it. And the monopolized government utility is going to see competition. They're going to feel like you're taking money out of their pocket. In reality, you're serving customers they can't reach yet. So explaining that you are an augmentation to them and defer to them, and they decide where everything goes. We'll stay out of your way. We can leave altogether if you get it under control. That has been a really popular thing. And at this point, the Minister of Energy in Haiti has told the utility whatever I need to do it, which is boiled down to the cartographer showing up to help draw a map of the grid. The evolution of that relationship was being in contact by email with the now Minister of Energy. That was started by IEEE. He's an IEEE member. Then once I contacted him and told him that we had had a successful pilot, the strategic planning sector meeting was coming up, and he asked if I would come and present at that. I did. We got put into the actual strategic plan, and then the president scooped it up in his very public energy policy and added us in that too. So we were fully, deeply, and happily entrenched in the government, and they're not bothering us wanting more than what they're getting. It's all working really, really well. Creating synergy with funding organizations. I mentioned that you need to identify the funding sources or potential funding sources, but it takes a long time to build these relationships. So pre-program, pre-pilot, once you know what you're going to do, start reaching out and saying, we're going to be putting electricity in villages, just so you know, watch this. And that has been a very effective strategy. A lot of places, I was too small, too green to get into at first, but the project has spoke for itself, and now I'm in, USAID. And that's like dominoes. Once you're in with one of those big boys, you're vetted and others are going to follow. Find out which relationships work pretty well in the country, considering the major donors, major funders, and the government. When you've got really despising each other, you just need to understand the dynamics, the relationships that are going on that were there before you got there and that are going to continue. And you don't want to get in bed with the wrong partner if it's going to affect all your other relationships. You just need to know exactly where everybody's aligned, as well as you can, being a stranger on the scene. We also defer to the people that we have in the country to let us know who actually really performs, who's not really performing. I donated a significant amount of time to the UN Foundation. This is the Year of Access to Sustainable Energy for All campaign, and preparing for that campaign meant writing a lot of documents regarding, I was on the 2 working groups, the Standards Working Group and the Supply Chain and Entrepreneurship Working Group. And the point was to help prepare the UN Secretary General and his committees on what government policies were going to need to come down and everything to make access to sustainable energy a reality. By doing that, I got a lot of connections to the higher up people that are, it wasn't the funding organizations necessarily, but the well-funded groups, so that you become their colleague, which has been a very valuable thing. So I would look for opportunities to volunteer time, because you're really getting to promote the project, in a practical way. And you check in regularly with those funders. You say, now we've got 2,000 houses, now we've got 3,000 houses, This is the evolution of the funding, just so you can understand how it all came together. Sirona and IEEE funded the equipment. We funded all of the knowledge that we gained and the relationships that we had built, and got to the point of the pilot. Post-pilot, we're on our own, and when we were heading to be on our own, we went to the Clinton Bush Haiti Fund first, because they were supposed to fund exactly the type of thing that we do. We spent 4 months negotiating a grant that they ultimately decided not to give us after an oral agreement that they would. It was a very frustrating and upsetting, almost throwing the towel moment for me. I was just really irritated. But USAID came through. They came through, and so far so good. We've accomplished the $150,000 grant right now. We've got a $400,000 assembly grant that should come through in September. And then I started working with the UNEP at that workshop, the strategic planning workshop. And that's resulted in us joining their Code to Suit initiative, and that's a $500,000 over 2 years. So that's a lot more seed funding, and it's grants. I don't have to pay it back. That's a major kickstart. So we will be, before we had to really find investment money, which we are looking for, already, because we know that's coming. But the more of this we can get, the better. And the further along, we'll have a lot more income to maximize.
Those grants are to what entity?
USAID.
To Sirona Cares, or
right.
Sirona,
Good question. The IEEE supported the foundation, the nonprofit, with the equipment donations. Then the USAID grant is a grant of equipment, very much like it happens to be the same equipment as the IEEE, and what they do is only given to groups that are registered in the country. So our for-profit entity is receiving the that grant. The for-profit entity will receive the assembly facility grant, and then I believe that the for-profit entity as well will receive the UNEP grant. It's smart actually to have 2 options, and 2 different sets of donors that you can talk to. Some people aren't going to fund anything that's foreign, but would make a funding proposition for a nonprofit in America. Just different possibilities. So.
Does Sirona can do actual work in America?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, actually, the physical, most of the work we do is in Haiti, and the only program that we have that's an American-based program supports public schools in the Bay Area through a recycled grease program in partnership with Sirona Fuels, which is a problem. So, when the earthquake occurred, Sirona did the largest humanitarian aid delivery out of California, which I'll never do anything like that again. But that was, we got a donated 6,000 square foot warehouse. We had hundreds of volunteers for months, sorting, organizing. Then we shipped all the goods, and done with that kind of not sustainable work. So the chain of events was really, the government was watching, just, you know, a lot of people say they're going to do something, doesn't usually happen, and funding organizations, same thing, you know, I was doing my best to get their attention during this first part where we were all three working really hard, designing the product, making it affordable, working the business plan, building our network, that web that you desperately need, having the successful pilot, going through the lessons learned, looking at the next iteration and branding strategies, all of those things. You know, that was a period of them watching, and then it switches. All of a sudden now, we're all clumped, and the IEEE can watch it grow. And give us advice as we needed, you know, technical advice. But I think it's been a really nice evolution, and I hope these slides help you to understand what it has happened. Any questions?
Can you discuss any synergy with manufacturing partners and how that's played out?
Manufacturing partners and supply chain building, Paul is going to talk about today.
Okay.
But yeah, that's really his headache. I like talking to you nice people, but supply chain is prickly and
Okay.
Paul's
You can say not much longer.
And I do. I'm like, when's it coming, Paul? And did you get a good price?
Sure. How about the funding restriction? Are they very specific program, or they have guidelines to say you can use these funds for these, variations of use?
What I found really fascinating about your talk was that when you're dealing with the IEEE and the funding organizations and quite possibly the government, you're dealing with that old style of you start with the money and there's this much and tighter frameworks. When we're working in the village level with the villagers in a completely different way. So what we've been able to be is that nice interconnection where, because it's successful, what they're willing to fund is the result. And with the grant that we're having right now, what was great is they turned it into a fixed obligation grant. I just have to hit the milestones that I did with them. We had to do a methodology for fair operator selection that was transparent. We wrote it for them. We had to select the operators, train the operators, deploy the equipment, and write a last final report. At all of those stages, and basically the amount of money we had told them it was going to cost had been all, beam counted over and over and over, and finally they were like, well, we'll just pay you in percentage, like 5% for the first milestone, 2020, until we got done. So it became where we get to do it our way, and we're doing milestones that I wrote with them, so it's exactly what we would have done anyways, but not very specific.
We had a very, very funny conversation with USAID and Comonix, who's the contractor who runs these things for USAID. And they're like, well, just give us the budget for all the individual components and the cost to assemble it and all this stuff, and then give us the budget for all your in-country work and the flights and your cell phones and driver time, all this stuff. And we were talking earlier, this is really stupid. They just need to give us a grant with milestones that when we hit, you pay. That's it. And we talked about, like, no, we want to do it this way. This is the way we do it. This is our traditional model. But as they got through it and realized all the complications and headaches around using that traditional model, they reached a point where they said, forget it. Milestones, percentages, done.
What was the role of Comonix in this?
They're the contractor that runs all that. They're one of the 3 contractors?
2 in Haiti, but they run the money basically.
They're money monitors.
Yes,
They're
right.
they are money monitors. They're just the gatekeepers.
Our new CEO in 2 months at IDE will be from Comonix.
Okay.
They're
Good with numbers.
the biggest operator.
Okay. I think we got a really lucky break with the Comonix officer who was assigned to us. She's young, very bureaucratic, so we have to go over the same things quite often, but on the other hand, very willing and happy to try to make the process as easy for us as possible. And a lot of times she'll just tell us the truth. She's like, I have a file and it has to have this in it. So I just need you to send me a count. I need you to send me, I need 3 warehouse locations, to compare. You're gonna get the one you want, but I just need to have this stuff in the file. So it's really helpful to deal with something like that where it could be made hard, easily.
I have one final break. You mentioned you've got all this data. Well, I'm really interested in that data because there's solar production data, there's customer data, there's failure rate data, whatever, and I've never seen a scrap it. Now, I know you've got it hidden away. You probably don't have time to work on it, but we could get somebody to
Analyze the data.
analyze, collate, get, that's very important data.
Got it. It was all assimilated and handed to me when I was in Haiti just a couple weeks ago. I've always taken pictures of it when I was
You
there.
don't have time to do this, but you
Yeah.
can get people to do it.
That's great.
In terms of your agreement with the operator, it is other than the pay, performing paying money back and all, do you actually have a guideline for them on how they select the end users?
No, that's community-based, and that's their choice. And they really get to decide. We've had a situation where,
So they'll determine the fairness issue if someone wants 2 units versus adding another customer with 1 unit.
we decide which operators get more units.
Well, what about the,
Oh, as far as 2 kids at their house?
Yeah.
Yes, they get to decide that. But then the community will dictate whether or not that was a fair decision.
Okay.
They're making the decision in the group of people that they
So
live with.
whatever pressure within their own community.
Yeah.
determines it.
Exactly. I mean, if he gave 5 to his mother,
That's his problem.
that's his problem and not.
Okay.
It's enormously effective.
Yeah,
It is enormously effective,
yeah.
because they know.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think there's some ethical control among the group themselves. They know each other, they know what's going on. There's, Lex is going to find out something going on.
Do you have a contingency plan or a mitigation plan for if that did happen, though? I mean, what if there was kind of nepotism or something, and even though the community is deciding, somehow, most of the units end up in the same general family or extended family or something, and other parts of the community are excluded, how would you?
Well, I have 2 answers for you. One is, if I gave you a Sunblazer or anything, and you could give, and there were 5 things you could give away, anybody who knows you well could probably guess the 5 people you would give it to.
Not give it to, but just,
That you would pick to associate with.
yeah, they may still pay me, but it would still be in my extended family.
Right.
I mean, do you have situations where you have really large extended families?
We have a huge, so, I mean,
Yeah,
in
so-
one hand, the neighborhood knows when that person gets it, most likely how they can be in the pool of people who receive it, or, but they go on a waiting list, and we will put more units in the same neighborhood. There's no problem with having 8 operators. The closer we locate our units together, the better it is for all of our service technicians. So it actually, we will fill up communities, and it won't all be with one person. No one operator can have more than 3.
But then the customers of the operator, that's what I was getting at. Even though you say the community is deciding,
I know,
you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, but here's the thing, if it's my business, I'm an operator, Michelle has given me a unit.
Right.
She says, go
Now you're
find
selecting the customers.
83 people, and Paul, just so you know, I'm gonna be back next month and you're gonna give me $300. I'm gonna pick 83 people that I know are gonna give me enough money so I can pay Michelle. And if I happen to have 83 cousins and brothers and stuff, and those are the people that I trust and who are gonna pay me, that's who I'm gonna give it to. And from a Sirona standpoint, I'm good with that, I want my $300.
Right, and I'm not disputing that. I'm just wondering, at the community level, does the community itself have some kind of a, what would you call it, a grievance process, so that if that did happen in the community would know how to deal
Well,
with
the
it?
grievance is with that operator.
With that, that's what I'm saying.
You can't overlay the Western philosophies on it, you just can't. You have to leave it to the community.
Yeah, and I think you're missing my point. I'm not suggesting that you would
It's
intervene,
Austin.
but I'm just wondering, do you know how that community, in a community-centric development process,
Beheaded.
how does a community kind of police itself? Especially in situations
Or
where,
if you have access to the waiting list, then you know.
Right.
I'm not saying it's something we would do as an
Do you
NGO, I'm
have
just
access?
curious how
We
that
do, yeah,
process
and
takes
it-
place.
People get
With,
beat up.
with access to the waiting
People
list, we
have
can see
that-
we've got
they-
300
yeah,
people who
they-
want a
they-
unit,
yeah,
so that
sometimes
means we
they
can
get
drop
killed.
6 more sun blazers, and
And
that
that's
fairness
really-
becomes, with more units, the fairness goes up. With the first
Yeah.
ones, when there's only 40 in each neighborhood, that's the most unfair it's ever going to be.
One of the issues on fairness that is huge, Michelle mentioned this the other day, is jealousy. Jealousy is the leading cause of death in Haiti. People, if you're worried, if you're like, how does the community deal with unfairness?
I
If one
believe
person
the
getting too
customer
much, they
will
shield
shield
you.
They
Let me say something here, please. Let me say something here. This is why we have to be careful. Okay? This is why we have to be careful. It's one thing to give people light. It's quite another thing to make those people, help those people be better people. You see. And I think both of you are getting at the point. You're getting at, okay, we want people to have light. And he's getting at the point of, yeah, we want people to have light, but we also want them to live good lives. We want them to have good relationships with the community. And I think we need to be able to, we need to be thinking about marrying those two so that what we do, especially since I think from the introduction here, I can safely say we are either all Christians here or we are comfortable with matters of faith, you see. It comes back to what he was saying, what are our values? Why are we giving people light?
Can
You see, that has to be part of the thinking. And then you begin to say, okay, how am I going to use this solar power project as an instrument of discipleship? In which case, his concerns are taken care of, as well as his concerns about collecting the money and making sure the light is functional.
Like so many things in this project, what we seem to be tapping into is a way to mitigate against problems, by dealing with the community the way we do. I would like to explain to you actually what's going on right now in St. Mark. The methodology for operator selection is well underway. That requires, there are 6 communes in St. Mark. All of them need at least 1 machine, and 9 machines are coming. The USAID has selected this one woman who runs a community outreach and helps traumatize women after rape and stuff. Her program, they've really said, we worked with her a lot, we really want her to get to be one of the operators. We interviewed her, it went great, so that was an easy one. In the other areas, they've never heard of us, they don't know what we do, and Lex and Ellen and my intern actually, they're making 3 cycles through the community. First is, come next week for an informational meeting. We're gonna have an informational meeting, in front of the church or at the community center or whatever. Tell your friends, come, and they've got a light kit, so they're showing them basically what it is. Come if you want to get in on this. Then they've gone back through 3 of the communities now on their path of the roadshow, explaining what it is, taking the applications, the sign-up sheets. And at one location they had 70 people show up, the other 2 have been about 30 people, and they've done 3 out of the 6 areas that they need to go to. We're going to have 200 applicants for 9 jobs. We're going to take 15 of them, through the process of, the whole thing. The way we pick who that's going to be, you have to provide references within your community and references abroad if you have them. So we get to vet. Our managers call around and they check on you, and they'll walk up to the pastor in town or whatever. A lot of times these are the pastors. They'll check and see, and feedback is pretty quick in those small communities, and we have not had a problem picking someone that was going to make a bad decision for his community, and I think he had to make a tough decision.
And I think with the strength, and I think I heard you say this yesterday in answer to your question. In fact, as far as Sirona is concerned, these two people are not even the people that should be involved at that level that you're talking about.
Right.
But because this is their baby, it is their job to make sure that there is that local pastor or that council person that is there to make sure that this project that has come to give light to the community really doesn't end up giving physical light, but bringing other forms of darkness to the community.
Probably the best response maybe to the question is, it's our management plan on that is actually operator selection. We don't pick the operator who's going to just give it to his cronies. And that, we had one potential operator in Jeremy that we met with, and he was a pastor and he had grand visions for a church and school. And it took us about a day and a half to find out he was a crook.
Well, he asked me for $400,000. I'm like, really?
And that's just what you do. That's
Yeah, I think the operator selection is that sounds like
That
a very good
builds in a
process.
lot of safeguards. You're never gonna, just because you're a pastor doesn't mean you're a good person.
No.
Don't
we know that?
So, I mean, there's no box that you can check and say for sure this person is golden and we know it with all certainty, but if they have a good reputation in their community, they're probably going to do the right thing, and we've had that experience. And then there's a point where it really just needs to be run by them. It's one thing, we had a shift in the mentality when we were interviewing that woman. That was during my trip. It was interesting, as soon as you told her it was a Haitian company, it was like, oh, well that's a lot better than giving like money to, just anything. I mean, this is a Haitian company. It makes sense to me to pay a bill to a Haitian company. And that was really good. That was the first customer who has been signed in as a Haitian operator, operator for a Haitian company.
She's the one recommended to you by the
Yeah.
USA.
Yeah. And she was full of skepticism when we arrived. It was that cycle, that broken promise thing. That USAID, when they started talking to us about this grant and where it would be deployed, took Lex around and he met her. And she got so excited, she signed up a bunch of customers and collected some deposits, and nobody ever came back. Well, that's because the whole funding thing, we were just waiting, going and counting beans. And finally, when it came through, when we showed up, she's like, oh, there was a guy here about that before, but he never came back. And she was really skeptical. She's like, here's more people with battery boxes. And we were sitting there thinking, and then we asked Chemonics, I'm like, did you bring Lex here? And they're like, oh, I think they did. So I'm like, well, that was actually our team. It took us this long to get the funding to be able to do this, and it's going to be done in the next 6 weeks. So we are definitely going to be back, and this is going to happen immediately.
So you've relabeled the kit with that nice Creole logo. Are you relabeling the trailer the same way in the new trailers?
New trailer labeling, the only label, we have not renamed the Sunblazer. I think we're keeping that name. We haven't named it as a Creole name. And so I believe most of the labeling on the Sunblazer is going to stay the same. At least definitely for these 9.
You're going to sell out of country, you don't know labeling, probably anyway, so
Right.
maybe other people want different things. I don't think there's any problem.
USAID is requiring us, we did get out of one of their loops. I was very, very happy about this. USAID requires, even if they give you a chair, you have to put their sticker on it. Every single thing that they buy for you, you have to put a sticker on. Oh yes, yes. And I was able to negotiate with them out of having to put the stickers on our home kits. Because if it says USAID on it, people are not going to pay their bill. And they let me away with it. I was really surprised. I thought that was going to be a lot worse than it was, and it made sense to them. And I have to put a 2-inch USAID sticker on the Sunblazer.
So, question, maybe more comment, because I'm sure you need more time for what I'm about to say. You both come come to this with some skills and some values. Do you have a number of Haitians that you are sort of mentoring and connecting to, and walking through this process that you just showed us? For example, if you were not there today, would there be a Haitian that can go to USID or that could come to IEEE, and that IEEE would recognize?
That would be Alan and Mont. If something happens to us and Alan calls you, that's what it's
Yes,
calling
yes.
about. But, yes, absolutely. And every operator is a trained business person with a new set of tools that, you know, are part of a sustainable business plan.
Yeah, but that is local. What I was asking is the international connections that you have. Are you bringing those people into the loop?
Well, very much at all of my presentations, we've always had Haitian management at that with me. I've gone on displays, I've done the government speeches and everything. Lex was there for that. Lex went to 2 of them. One, there was a CARICOM event where we displayed the unit, and then Alain is project coordinator for these grants with USAID, and he's always at the table at all of those. And then I leave the country, and it's his problem. I mean, he's running it, so.
So I met all those people down there last June.
I think you've done some things really well. I mean, you've done a lot of things really well. I already mentioned this to you, and if you're doing this is key, because one of the things that I've seen happen in Africa over and over. To give you just an example, at a local seminary, we had a missionary who came out. He was a librarian. He built a library. He was there for 32 years, and he retired. And the library has gone down because in 32 years, the library was his baby. He knew where he went to get the funding for books. He knew where to get the books. He didn't tell anybody that, you see. And so now he's retired. He's gone back to Canada, and the local people are sitting there thinking, well, how did this guy run this library? Where did he get the resources for all of these books, you see? And that is something that is repeating itself in Africa way too much, way too much.
It does in Haiti as well, and a lot of NGOs fly in their own people to take those key positions where I want it to be Haitian run, you know.
When we died, this unit, you know, the Sirona Haiti is sustainable economically, educationally. We have no intention of spending 30 years in Haiti running this company.
No, because I want to go to Africa. So.
But this guy you're talking about, this was a charitable situation where they established a library, and then this guy ran it for 30 years?
Yeah, this was a seminary library, and
there was no succession plan?
no, there was no succession plan. Exactly. And I could very easily, just in my own little place in Cameroon, I could easily list a dozen similar examples in a variety of different places, both in government and in the church and in the NGO world.
Well, we're definitely not attempting to eternally manage this thing, just stay on it. But it only works. I have this, a watch pot in America doesn't boil. And you have to watch a pot in Haiti to make it boil. You have to make sure things keep moving forward.
Michelle, you and Paul, you've done well. I really admire
Thank you.
what you.
But we want to extricate and move on. There are a lot more people that don't have light. We want to, you know, not drop it, not retire out of it. We've built something. It should keep going. So.
Michelle, as far as USAID and UNED, the funding, the expectation for reporting for the milestone, or verification that the fund was used? What's the expectation there?
It is easy, very easy, little form. Basically, each milestone had a deliverable with it. Milestone 1 was it was selection of the facility. So I had to write a report, showed pictures, told why it was the best facility, signed my name, gave that to them, check, and then they give me basically an invoice form. And it says, what was your milestone? And I have to give the title off of the grant and the amount that is due, and they sign it and pay me.
Okay.
So it's very clean and
So they didn't
simple.
give you money up front?
No,
Well, kind of.
they bought the equipment from me, so the foundation was well funded. The
When we-
milestones don't get paid until you make them, so.
When we negotiated the purchase agreement, I had them do a 50% down payment so that we had seed funding to go on.
Good,
Okay.
great.
So they never come up to do any field verification?
I have to supply them with pictures. They actually they verified the location that I selected. They do come and check it out, but they're not hands-on, and they're very disorganized, so they could be running really late. We'll be done, I think, before they get their side of this stuff, but that's okay, and they're not going to be upset. They'll just be like, well, I guess we didn't have that much less to do, so. And what's really been great, I'm thinking ahead and doing what I advised on in terms of funding partners, because I'm explaining to USAID, they will be contacted by people in other countries from USAID wanting to know how this went, so that we can leapfrog into the system in a new country and have a reputation behind us that precedes us, which will be hopefully
Okay.
fast.